Recently, through my wife's friend, I accidentally discovered that she had been unfaithful for the past 20 years. I decided to end our marriage. Clarence ducked. It was a crisp autumn evening in Boston, the kind where the leaves painted the streets in hues of red and gold. I had just returned from a business trip to London, jet-lagged but content to be home. My wife Claire greeted me at the door with her usual warm smile, the one I had fallen in love with 2 decades ago. For 20 years we had shared a life, a beautiful house, 2 children now off to college, and countless memories. I thought we had it all, but that evening marked the beginning of an unraveling I never saw coming. It started innocuously enough. Claire's best friend Emily had stopped by to drop off a book she had borrowed. Emily and I had always gotten along well, her sharp wit and dry humor a refreshing complement to Claire's gentler nature. As we chatted over coffee, Emily mentioned a recent trip she and Claire had taken to New York. Being on the roads 7 hours a day, Claire was losing her mind. As we traveled downtown, Claire was still wrapped up in the stories she was telling herself. It was such a whirlwind. But Claire, of course, had her own plans. You know how she is, Emily said, her words laced with a hint of something I couldn't quite place. Her own plans? I asked, curiously. Emily's face froze for a split second before she quickly changed the subject. But that fleeting moment of hesitation lodged itself in my mind. Later that night, as Claire slept soundly beside me, I found myself replaying Emily's words. Something felt off. The next day, I casually brought up the trip to Claire, asking how it had gone. She was evasive, her usual cheerful demeanor suddenly subdued. She said, "He said something to me." "Oh, it was fine. Just a lot of shopping and catching up," she said, not meeting my gaze. It was unlike Claire to be so vague. A knot of unease began to form in my stomach, but I brushed it aside. After all, 20 years of trust couldn't crumble over a few odd moments, could they? Or so I thought. A week later, Emily invited us to a dinner party. Over wine and laughter, the conversation turned to old memories. Emily, perhaps emboldened by the alcohol, let slip a comment that made my blood run cold. "Remember that guy in Paris, Claire? What was his name again?" she said with a chuckle. Claire's face went pale. She stammered something unintelligible and quickly excused herself to the kitchen. I felt the weight of the room's sudden silence pressing down on me. Everyone pretended not to notice, but I couldn't ignore the alarm bells ringing in my head. That night, I confronted Claire. At first, she denied everything, insisting Emily must have been mistaken. But as I pressed, the truth began to spill out, piece by agonizing piece. Over the course of our marriage, Claire had been unfaithful. Not once, not twice, but for the better part of 2 decades. The first affair had been with a colleague from work, shortly after our youngest was born. Then, there was the man she met during a yoga retreat in California, and another during a trip to Italy. The details blurred together, each revelation a dagger to my heart. "Why?" I finally managed to ask, my voice breaking. "Why would you do this to us?" Claire's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know," she whispered. "I felt trapped, like I had lost myself in being a wife and mother. It wasn't about you, it was about me." Her words felt hollow, an inadequate explanation for the betrayal that had shattered the foundation of our life together. That night I slept on the couch, staring at the ceiling as memories of our marriage played like a cruel montage in my mind. The laughter, the vacations, the quiet moments of intimacy. Were they all a lie? The next morning I made a decision. I couldn't continue living in a marriage built on deceit. I told Claire I wanted a divorce. She begged me to reconsider, promising to go to therapy, to do whatever it took to save our marriage. But I knew I couldn't forgive her, not after learning the full extent of her betrayal. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal proceedings and painful conversations. Telling our children was the hardest part. They were devastated, their image of the perfect family shattered. I tried to explain without revealing too much, wanting to shield them from the uglier truths. As I packed my belongings and prepared to move into a small apartment downtown, I felt a strange mix of grief and relief. Grief for the life I thought I had, and relief for the chance to start anew, free from the weight of lies. In the months since the divorce, I've found solace in small things. A morning run along the Charles River, reconnecting with old friends, and even trying my hand at painting, something I'd always wanted to do, but never found the time for. I've learned that healing isn't a linear process. Some days the anger and sadness threaten to overwhelm me, but other days I feel a glimmer of hope, a reminder that life goes on. As for Claire, I've heard through mutual friends that she's also trying to rebuild her life. I don't hate her, despite everything. In some ways, I pity her. She'll have to live with the consequences of her choices, just as I've had to come to terms with mine. Looking back, I realize how easy it is to let complacency creep into a relationship, to assume that love and trust will endure without effort. But trust, once broken, is almost impossible to mend. And love, as powerful as it is, cannot survive in the shadow of betrayal. My story isn't one I ever imagined I'd be telling. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Sometimes endings are necessary to make way for new beginnings. And while the scars of betrayal may never fully fade, they serve as a reminder of my strength, my resilience, and my unwavering belief in the possibility of a brighter future. The possibility of a brighter future.